release of my second comic book, I've been getting some questions from you guys about my process of creating a comic. So I opened up an Ask Me Anything, so let's get into it. Tips for starting: I have a comic idea, but I'm not good enough to make a comic. This question is so sad, but I see it a lot. Here's the deal, right? You'll never think you're good enough in the moment. You're always working to improve your art, and you're always moving the goalpost of when you'll finally get there. You'll never think you're ready. So the best time to start your comic, and I hate to say this cliche, was yesterday. The second best time to start your comic is today. I've started several, and I mean several, comics in the past, and they never got past a few pages. This was during my college days, so I think it was a combination of having a lot on my plate as a student and also not having a solid idea that I was in love with. But I never looked back at those as failures. I look back at them as practice. I started, decided it wasn't the right time, the right characters, or the right story, so I stopped. I still don't think my art is, quote, good enough, but I already feel like I've learned a lot from my first comic book. And you know what? My art will get better over time. You just gotta start practicing now, and you'll look back at your first book and think, golly, look how much I've improved, and I'm glad I started one. Which is better, posting a comic online or printing it? I think it really just depends on what your goal is. I have both a comic I post online only and a comic that I print only. One is free and one costs money. I think starting off, it's a great idea to post your comic so you have a larger reach. Being online means people can read it for free. If you don't post it behind a paywall, it can easily be shared. That means it can be discovered more easily, and you can start building a fan base of your story and your characters. I do have the first book of Prickle and Pear available online for free just for this reason. I wanted to give everyone a chance to get a taste for what these comics are like, get to know the characters, and not have to spend money discovering that. If they want to read more, great, they can support me by buying comics. If not, then I guess they won't. So long story short, if you're just starting out and don't really have an audience or the money to print your own books, I would highly suggest posting your comic online first. How do you get your ideas? Oh geez. I get this question a lot about my art and I still don't know how to answer it. I think it just boils down to it's the way my brain works. I don't know if there's a single answer anyone gives that isn't just, it's my brain. There are things my brain likes and my brain doesn't like. I draw the things I like and I think of things that I think are silly and fun, which I then draw. There's always ways to kickstart your way of thinking and creativity by getting real life experience. The more you get out of your house, the more inspiration you'll find. You can find inspiration from movies, shows, video games, etc., but I think getting out there and exploring the world can really help you get inspired. Something as simple as going for a walk or a hike can get you thinking. I once went on a hike and saw such a variety of flowers I had never seen that I was inspired to create characters inspired by the colors and shapes I saw. Interacting with people, hearing their stories, seeing their lives from another point of view, it's all inspiring in one way or another. What inspired you to create this specific comic? What a segue. I guess if I do have a good example of how I get my ideas, this is definitely one. I've enjoyed drawing cacti for a while. A lot of my older fans are familiar with the maze-like drawings of a cactus winding through the page I used to make. Then I moved on to monthly cactus drawings inspired by each month. Then one day I got sad about constantly killing my plants, so I started to sew my own plants, but more specifically cacti, because they were a very simple and easy design. They were super fun to make, so I made tutorials on how to make them early in my YouTube days, and people enjoyed them as well, so I wanted to sell them, but felt like they needed more of a cute look, so I gave them cat ears, a face, and boom, the cat cactus was born. It's a subject I draw from time to time and started to feel like they needed to be more of a permanent character in my universe, so one thing led to another, and now they're in comic form. As much as I enjoy illustration, I'm starting to feel the need to do more with my art rather than standalone illustrations. So I created a silly and fun comic where I fall in love with these two characters more and more. Now, the subject of the comic, I just love goofy, fun little adventures that are chill. I also love character design, so focusing each installment of Prickle and Pear discovering a new creature in the universe was a fun way for me to get creative in that way. Do you have a solid script going into each page or just a general idea? With my first comic, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. Okay, I lied. I knew the first comic was going to be an introduction to the characters and the world they live in, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. Honestly, I just wrote it page to page as I thumbnailed with zero idea of where it was going. Is that the best way to approach writing a comic? no. It was a pain when I wanted to add parts or rearrange, but it worked well enough. Actually, my first comic was made as quickly as I could, and I printed it and received it 2 days before my first time selling at VanCaf, which is the Vancouver Comic and Arts Festival. So I'm really happy with how it turned out for being done in a couple of weeks. Honestly, my goal is to have fun with my art, share it with others, and die happy. I had fun writing the comic in my untraditional way, and who was hurt? Nobody. I don't have a deadline by a bigger company. I don't have a publisher or an editor. It's just me. I'm just publishing the book on my own time with no pressure, and it's working for me at the moment. Right now, Prickle and Pear consists of silly, goofy short stories, so who knows where it will go in the future. Maybe it will develop into a more serious, longer story. How does your wrist not hurt? Make your own font. Oh boy. This is a comment I get several times as I share the process of the comic as I work on it. If you couldn't tell, I handwrite all of the dialogue in my comics. What can I say? I like my handwriting, and I think it gives a nice handmade feel to the comic. Again, if I were on a more strict schedule with a deadline and a publisher, I would turn my handwriting into a font and type everything out. Easy peasy. But I'm a glutton for torturing myself, and to be honest, I really enjoy sitting down with a good show on while I letter the comic. It's fun. I enjoy the process. I think it's cute. And I think the only way I'll turn it into a font is if the comic one day becomes so popular I need to work faster. So good luck making that happen. Oh, it would suck if everyone bought my comic book. How do you make sure you have a nice balance between drawings and dialogue? Again, I think this is just another part of art that comes with practice. Just like any form of art, be it backgrounds, character design, coloring, it's all something you start off not knowing what you're doing, and with practice you hopefully get better and better over time. I would definitely suggest reading a lot of comics and really paying attention to the art, layout, writing, pacing, etc., instead of just reading it and blowing through the pages. I love soaking in each page and every detail you would otherwise not notice if you focused on just the reading. So basically, practice the layouts, mix it up, you'll get there. What's your favorite and least favorite part of your process? I would probably say coloring is my favorite because you can really start to see the comic come together and it really starts to become real at this stage. I also just really love the color green, and there's a lot of green in my comic, and seeing all of the green come together on the pages is so nice. I love it. As for my least favorite part, probably the sketching. I sometimes struggle with coming up with a drawing and how to keep every page and panel fresh and exciting, as well as working around text boxes, making sure they aren't all the same layout. It can get stressful at times, and probably the only part I really get stressed when making the comic. Actually, that is not true. If we're including printing the comic, boy oh boy, that is the most stressful part because I am so afraid of all of the money I'm going to waste when I receive a comic with a messed up detail, a stinky misspelling, or a page I forgot. That would be so sad. Do you draw it all in Procreate? Yep, everything I create digitally is basically done in Procreate. I feel like I always struggled with my digital art. It just never felt quite right until Procreate came around, and I really look at it differently. I almost even sketch exclusively in Procreate, even when I'm creating a traditional art piece. It's cleaner, it's smoother, it's easy to work with. Would recommend Procreate. What brushes do you typically use? For Prickle and Pear, I use dry ink as my primary brush. I use it for everything from inking the line work to the lettering. For my online-only comic, Sketch Scouts, I have a much sketchier, looser look and use technical pencil, which is a lot more textured. But I do, again, use dry ink for the lettering as well, since it's thicker and easier to read as a font. I use a variety of other random brushes from the default Procreate pack to add textures and other details throughout both comics, but dry ink is definitely my go-to, followed by technical pencil. Which do you prefer, Sketch Scouts or Prickle and Pear? Wow. How dare you make me choose between my younger child and the older child that I forgot existed after the new one was born? Jokes aside, I would definitely have to say Prickle and Pear. I like things about both comic series, but I have a closer connection to the character designs of Prickle and Pear. To be honest, Sketch Scouts was originally supposed to be a short one-off comic I made to promote my iron-on patches I created in my shop, but I got really interested in the characters and the world they lived in, and I just kept going. And although it's been on hiatus for 3 years now, I still want to get back into it. I do love the world and I want to see more from them. I would also love to print it as well with more pages than Prickle and Pear. So yes, I prefer Prickle and Pear, but I still love Sketch Scouts even though it's been neglected a little. For comics, who are your influences? Okay, show and tell time. Now, there isn't any one artist in particular that inspires me as far as comics go, but there's a few artists in comics that I really cherish and really enjoyed, so I'll show them to you. I'm going to start off by mentioning Dina Norland. Her character designs and creature creations and storytelling was amazing, and she was an amazing friend, and I'm just gonna move on. I don't like to talk about sad things. This one summer was a really nice comic. I picked this up one day and I think I read it pretty quickly. I just love the art, the pacing, the storytelling. It's great. A Frog in the Fall and Later On is a comic I absolutely enjoyed recently. I just love how slow-paced the comic is. I just really like, I think, slow-paced, chill storytelling that doesn't have to be crazy, energetic things happening all the time, and I really enjoyed this comic for that vibe. Dershing Helmer is a comic artist I've been following for a long time. This comic in particular is Mare Internum. It's a space story, intense storytelling, really pretty art. Would recommend their other comic also, The Meek. I feel like I need to mention one of my favorite manga, Yotsuba, and actually my favorite manga is Azumanga Daioh, but it's by the same creator, and I just love, again, how sort of chill and goofy and silly it is, and I just really like chill, goofy, and silly comics. And lastly, I just wanted to mention Jeffrey Brown. I think this was my first introduction to comics that weren't a magical story about fictional characters, but instead more of like a diary comic about someone's life and just experience they had. So I thought this was really interesting. I ran into this a long time ago and I don't know, it stuck with me. That is that for another yapping video. I hope you guys learned a thing or two. Start your comic now. Recommend any comics in the comments below if you have any recommendations. Maybe I'll check them out. And a huge thank you to my patrons for all of their support. You guys are the best. If you want early access to these videos, secret sketches, live streams, and more, check out the link to my Patreon in the description. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.